if I third it or I get one back?
Yeah, it's just like a shit.
You get a third. For this episode, I will be sharing a 2-5 session with you guys from Grand Villa. If you're not interested in these intros and you want to skip right ahead to the hand analyses, you can just fast forward to this time right here. I initially wanted to vlog a home game session to share with you guys, just so I could show you what a private session with ridiculous games and wild mini games can be like. But I quickly gave up after filming a few hands because I realized that all the action hands were not really the typical Hold'em hands, and my note-taking app and the same app that I use for the graphics layout just didn't support those games that we played, like triple board PLO, Sohi, or double board PLO with a shared ocean card. There were some action Hold'em hands. For example, I did have to go in all in pre-flop with 9-4 offsuit to steal a pot, or I actually had to call down a pre-flop all-in with King 9 offsuit and was actually ahead but ended up losing. But none of those hands would make any sense to you guys if I didn't explain all the mini games that were in play, plus the table dynamics. And to be honest, I'm not so sure you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, but if you are, please let me know below in the comments, and perhaps in the future I will make an effort to vlog one of these sessions for you guys. In the meantime, here are a couple clips from Greg's game. This was a Hold'em hand where I picked up pocket kings. The villain had pocket 10s. It was early in the night, so our stacks are not deep, and we get it all in. Turns out he flopped top set. Nothing too special here, but I did enjoy Greg's comment.
My poker's rigged.
And then there's one of the crazier games we play, one of my favorites, triple board PLO. I take down 2/3 of the pot while Greg takes 1/3 in a 3-way all-in. Fun times. Now back to 2-5 at Grand Villa, which is actually the following night. Actually, this is not even 2-5 yet. I sat in a 1-3 game for only one hand, waiting for a 2-5 or a 5-10. In this first and only hand, I pick up pocket kings in the +1 position. Under the gun opens to $20, and I re-raise to $50. A $20 raise in 1-3 is quite big. The 3-bet sizing I chose, which is 2.5x the initial bet, is strictly to isolate and go heads up. In this game, no one is calling that size without queens, kings, or aces, but the villain who opened will be priced in with a lot of weaker hands that I dominate, so I'm pretty much already setting up for an all-in on the turn with this SPR. Just as planned, everyone folds except for the villain. The flop comes Jack 10 deuce with 2 spades. The villain leads out for $130. A bit surprising because I thought I would be taking the betting lead here, but it doesn't change much in terms of my plan. I just go all in right here. He calls. The board runs an offsuit 4 and 5. The villain shows Jack 8 of spades, and I take this one down. So I sit down at this table, play exactly one hand, double up, and then I start racking up. The optics don't look great here. I do say to the villain, sorry, I just got called to the 2-5 game, and he was cool about it. This hand is actually now a 2-5 hand. I pick up pocket jacks at the cutoff, +1 limps, and I raise it up to $25. The button calls and the limper calls. The flop comes 3-9-4 rainbow. It checks to me. This is one of the best boards I can ask for pocket jacks. I want to keep in any 9x holding here or weaker pocket pairs, and potentially get multiple streets of value depending on the runout. I c-bet for $25. The button folds and +1 calls. The turn is a 10 of hearts. The villain checks again. There's now a flush draw on the board. I decide to bet big to get value from any flush or straight draws. I make it $100. If the villain check raises a big bet, I could get away here as he reps a set or maybe hit 2 pair with 9-10. If he calls, I'm putting him on mostly a hand like ace-9 suited, combo draw, or a stubborn 9. I guess he has none of that because he just folds. This hand, I pick up Queen 10 of clubs at the low jack position. I open to $15. The button 3 bets to $60. Everyone folds and I call. I'm pretty sure I'm behind at the moment, but both of us are pretty deep, so even out of position, I don't mind playing these type of hands like suited Broadway cards that can potentially have boards that hit big and at the same time connect a bit with the villain as well. The flop comes Queen 10-3 Rainbow. Perfect board for me as I hit 2 pair. I check and the villain bets $125. This villain is very tight, the type that would likely check back ace-king in this spot. So when he c-bets for pot size, I immediately put him on kings or aces. I call. My plan is to check raise his turn bet on a clean card, hoping he puts me on just a queen or a straight draw. The turn is an offsuit 4. This is the perfect card for me to continue with my plan. I check. Unfortunately, he checks back. I'm assuming for pot control. The river is a 3. This is such a horrible card. In my mind, I already know that I got counterfeit, but I decide to go with a blocker / value bet here, just in case he has ace-queen suited. I make it $125. He calls, and before he even shows his hand, I just know here.
Okay, counterfeit. Nice hand.
He indeed shows pocket kings to take down the pot. This hand, I am the one to pick up pocket kings. I am at the hijack position and there are 2 limpers. I raise it up to $25. Only the small blind calls. The flop comes ace-9-8 with 2 spades. Of course, whenever we get kings, an ace comes on the flop. The villain checks and I c-bet for $25. He calls. I am now slightly concerned about him holding an ace, but there are straight draws and flush draws out there as well. I also opened in a late position, so he can also get sticky with just a 9 or 8. The turn is another ace. The villain checks again. This is a great card for me. Having checked twice with 2 aces on the board, I think it's way less likely now that he has an ace. I decide to bet $40. This sizing is mainly for value, targeting any draws or the 9 or 8. He thinks for a little while and folds. This hand, I have king 10 offsuit at the cutoff. Only the hijack limps, and I decide to isolate and raise to $20. Everyone folds and the hijack calls. The flop comes jack 4-6 with 2 diamonds. The villain checks and I also check. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, which gives me the king high flush draw and a gut shot straight draw. The villain leads out for $20. He could be leading out now after trying to trap me on the flop with a pair. I have 1 diamond to block the flush, and my hand has some equity, so I won't be folding in position. I'm just thinking whether to just call or raise right now to set up a river bluff. There is a possibility that he's leading out with the ace of diamonds, and if that's the case and the river is a diamond, I may have to pay him off a bet, so bloating the pot might not be too wise right now. I decide to call. I'll keep the pot small and evaluate. The river is a blank. The villain checks again. I don't think my king high is good here. I decide to bluff since my hand blocks the flush. My 10 is also a good blocker for jack and 9 combos. I don't think my bluff sizing needs to be too big because I'm targeting mainly ace of diamonds or a 4 or a 6. I make it $40. The villain pretty much snap folds. This hand, I pick up 9-7 of spades at the cutoff. There are 2 limpers and the low jack raises to $20. I call and all the limpers call. The flop comes deuce 3-6 rainbow. Everyone checks. The turn is an 8 of diamonds, and there are now 2 flush draws on the board. Everyone checks to the low jack, who bets $60. I have an open-ended straight draw here. The two initial limpers, I put them on nothing, because it's not very likely they will check twice on this draw-heavy board with a strong hand. They are early position limpers, so flopping the straight is not likely on this board, and a straight would definitely bet to protect from two flush draws. The low jack is leading out with the delayed C bet. My hand does unblock all the flush draws. With equity, I think this is a good spot to raise and semi-bluff now, also setting up a potential river bluff. If the river breaks, I think I have the range advantage with this board. I can rep a straight or set that check back the flop once for pot control, whereas the villain's hand is likely an overpair or flush draw. I raise it to $150. The limpers fold and the low jack calls. The river is an offsuit 10. That is the gin card and I hit the nut straight. The villain checks. And now it seems like he does want to get the showdown cheaply with a one pair type hand. I decide to go for value bet of $150. The villain tanks for a while and then announces all in. I snap call and show my hand. The villain shows 7-9 of clubs for basically the exact same hand, and we chop this one up. A little bit anticlimactic, and this is one of those times that I wish the river card didn't hit me so that I could bluff him off. For the last interesting hand of the night, I pick up ace-king on the button. The hijack opens for $20 and I 3-bet to $60. Interestingly, the big blind calls and the hijack folds. It's heads up into a flop of king queen 5 rainbow. The villain checks. I think this is the perfect board for me to check back and protect my checking range, because it's a pretty dry board and any hand that beats me has me crushed. If she is behind, then my c-bet will often just take the pot down now without further action. But if the villain has something like ace-queen or a pocket pair, I might still be able to get 2 streets of value by checking the flop. I check. The turn is an 8. The villain checks again. I bet $50. She calls. The river is another 5, pairing the board. This is a nice card because a pocket pair or any queen is now a very legit bluff catcher. She checks once again. I go for a bet of $200 to try and rep a bluff. Unfortunately, she quickly lays it down. For this session, I bought in for $1,400 and cashed out for $1,180. That is a loss of $220.